Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Prog Connection. If you haven't already, if you don't already know who we are, my name is Zoltan Vamus. I am your host. This is PhD Brian Vamus. He worked with Terry Brown on the 1991 Kite album. It reached the top 20 in Canada. And this is also, we also have Phil, who is a fanatic of Yes and one of the great prog listeners on this show. So,
Fanatic of IQ, too.
Fanatic of IQ, that's very true. And we all love Genesis pretty equally, I'd say. So there's a lot of classic blood in here, I'd say. So before we get into this episode, I wanted to go ahead and run down everybody on what this video is. We're going to be discussing our top prog epics. We're going to have a main list of 10. We're going to start with that, and then we're going to do our honorable mentions as more of a casual thing. We're going to talk about them, just talk about them more casually. We don't have to list them out. This will be more of a podcast episode. So Phil, if you're ready for that, get ready for a podcast format, because this is pretty much what we're going to be doing for this one.
I'll do what I can.
All right. So, Phil, we had a good chat about what we thought qualifies an epic in this video. And we did post the rules. We said specifically the epic cannot be lesser than 13 minutes long at the very, very minimum. It has to be segmented, or it has to feel segmented, and it has to be one of, if not the dedicated long song on the album. So, with that, is there any other qualifications you guys want to mention that you guys have for your specific lists?
Well, I will say that the segments don't have to be one particular track. And they don't even have to even necessarily be in sequential order on the album.
Mm-hmm.
In the case of one on my list, and I'm sure on Zoltan's as well.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, I'm going to go ahead and say we'll start with Dad. Dad, why don't you go ahead and give us your number 10.
My number 10 is by the English/German band Nectar, and it is A Tab in the Ocean.
Nice.
Which, again, I don't know, it's classic early 70s prog with I know that Nectar was really an English band that happened to reside in Germany. It's not, I think that these guys were a classic English prog band, just happened to reside in Germany, but
yeah,
often labeled as a German prog band, but I don't think any of them were born in Germany. So
I don't think so either.
But I think A Tab in the Ocean is kind of in the same sort of feel as a Yes or a Genesis. I do think they were doing that type of thing that's filled with Hammond organs and that kind of a thing, but it is a classic, perfect concept of Tab in the Ocean.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my number 10, Tab in the Ocean.
All right. Well, my number 10, I put 2112 by Rush.
Ooh.
Anybody who knows Rush beyond just moving pictures has to know how awesome this whole track is.
True.
It's a great sci-fi story.
Mm-hmm.
Neil Peart is an amazing lyricist, as always. A lot of people think that Coheed and Cambria is inspired by Rush because of their sci-fi themed concept albums, and comparing them to 2112, it is not hard to see why. The segments on this song are great. Geddy Lee sings Neil Peart's lyrics fantastically. Is this the first time they've had kind of, I'm not going to say a heavy use of synthesizers, but is this their first instance of using synthesizers?
When you listen to an album like Caress of Steel, which was the first album to feature like a really big long track with the Fountain of Lemneth. I do think that there's a little, but it's not nearly as prominent.
Right. I've not listened to Caress of Steel a whole lot. I know I need to. It's a very underrated album.
Very.
But as now, yeah, 2112. Not a single moment on this album is wasted. Not even that really long spacey intro that
Yep.
lasts like a minute in the beginning.
Mm.
It always holds my interest whenever I listen to it, and it's always a fun time. So, got number 10 is 2112.
Nice. All right. My number 10 is a little bit newer. It's from 2004, and it's quite it's I would say the modern Supper's Ready. It is Harvest of Souls by IQ, and I think that this is one of the great. I think this is probably their best epic. It's so structured. You can feel the flow so naturally. Each part is well transitioned. It's well pieced together. It's extraordinarily well arranged. And the production of this is just so outstanding. I don't think that there's a single wasted second. The lyrics are fit really well with the music. And all the instrumentation is top notch. This is probably IQ with Martin Orford at its best, and that's as far as it would go, unfortunately. But still, the best way to end off the Martin Orford era, in my opinion. And Harvest of Souls is just a testament of how fantastic of songwriters these guys were. This is a great epic. If you want to hear IQ at some of their just best, go ahead and listen to Harvest of Souls. It's absolutely wonderful. Now, Dad, you're number 9.
My number 9, because after listening today, there's no way I could leave this off the list. My number 9 is Jethro Tull's Thick as a Brick.
Mm-hmm.
Just a classic, basically the invention of the concept piece.
Mm-hmm.
Difficult for some of the younger guys like yourself, Zoltan, to listen to these things. You know, you feel like it's meandering
Not
off.
for me.
But I think that it really does epitomize the idea of the concept piece, and I think that they did this as a parody almost, like say,
That's
you know,
what
if
it was.
people if you people think we can't do this, if rock is going into big concept pieces, I don't know, maybe they were focused on some of the Who concept albums, I'm not sure, but obviously other people were doing concept albums and you know, rock opera, whatever. They said, okay, well, we'll do it. But of course, they did it with the typical Jethro Tull sense of humor. You know, that there's this kid who's writing this thing and it's all the newspaper inside the album. And I don't know, just for me, it's just, it still hits the, you know, it still hits the button right on the nose. It's just still really, really classic. And as we were watching the live version today, Zoe, you know, John Evan is just one of those great prog keyboard players. If we do the list of the top prog keyboard players of all time, I guarantee you that John Evan will be on my list. He will make the top 10. He's a great Hammond player. And, you know, this is just prog at its best. But again, I know going back to the classic era that old men like me like, but I like it. Number 9, Jethro Tull, Thick as a Brick.
All right. Phil, you're number 9.
My number 9, like I said before, one of the things about this list is the epics don't necessarily have to be all one track, and they don't even have to be in sequential order for the album. And I say that to qualify that my number 9 is the Duke Suite from Genesis. Almost the trio. almost the trio's attempt at writing a second Supper's Ready, but they decided not to put it in sequential order because they didn't want it to be compared to Supper's Ready. I get why, but at the same time, probably could have gotten away with it because just like Supper's Ready, every moment of this whole thing is amazing. The intro to Behind the Lines is some of my favorite moments of Genesis's entire discography. The song itself is great. I love the hell out of Duchess. Guide vocal is, I would say it's the only part that doesn't really feel like it needs to be there, except it's justified later by having the lyrics to that song reprised in Duke's Travels.
Yeah.
And Duke's Travels is absolutely fucking amazing.
True.
From beginning to end. And so is Duke's End. And of course, save the part that everyone knows best for last, Turn It On Again. A lot of people don't seem to think it's a prog song. I have to wholeheartedly disagree. It is absolutely a prog song. How many pop songs do you know that are in 13/8?
Fair.
So that's really what I got. Great keyboard work from Tony.
Yeah.
Mike is killer on the bass. He's all right on guitar. He's passable. But, at that point, Genesis was not a really guitar-forward band, so he serves the role very well.
Yep.
And, of course, Phil, monstrous drummer, monstrous singer. Everything that is amazing about the early trio era Genesis is all on this 6-part epic. And it's perfect. It's absolutely perfect.
All right. So my number 9 is a little band from, I believe, Norway, actually. These guys are ridiculous. These guys are... This is their most classic album for me. It's got their best epic, and it's the least like Yes you'll find in their entire discography, even though it sounds still like Yes in a lot of moments. Wobbler, Hinterland, which has a 27 monolithic epic, and it has all the atonal weirdness of early Yes, a little bit of Gentle Giant, a lot of that further fifth like dissonance and weirdness that you'll get in some of the more darker tones of Genesis in this as well. It's very well played. It's very well formatted. It's well arranged. Again, it's just a lot of good classic prog tropes. This is about as retro prog as you could possibly find. I have not found a band that's more retro than this. That is about as... You plop that in the 70s, and people probably call that one of the best prog epics ever written. And it's really good. It sounds like it's from the 70s. It just... I don't think you could find an epic from almost any band that sounds more like it was pulled from the 70s than this. They were just trying to emulate every single second of 70s production, arrangements, and instrumentation that they possibly could. You can't find a single second of modern sound in that. It's so retro. It's ridiculous. I love it. Wobbler, Hinterland, 27 minutes. Great stuff. Dad, you're number 8.
My number 8 is Numbers by the Flower Kings from the album Banks of Eden. I don't know. I just again, it's very retro, but again, it's just great. The melodies are fantastic. And, I'm not living in the past,
Yeah.
So, yeah, number 8 is Flower Kings Numbers.
Phil, you're number 8.
All right. Well, your number 10 was one band's attempt at recreating Supper's Ready.
Yeah.
And my number 8 is another band's attempt at recreating Supper's Ready, and that is Grendel by
Ah.
Marillion. 17 or so minutes. It was one of the first songs they ever released commercially on the 12-minute or the 12-inch EP release of their Market Square Heroes single, which was before their debut album, Script for a Jester's Tear. And they got it so right. The one issue I may have is some of the timing on the drums. Mick Pointer was not necessarily the best drummer. They really stepped up. They really stepped it up a lot when they got Ian Mosley.
Yeah.
And I think that makes this a little bit unfortunate because by the time Ian Mosley had joined the band, they had completely abandoned this song. And it is an absolute shame because, oh my God, this is neo-prog at its best. Like, it feels a lot like Supper's Ready, but especially the ending of the song where if you watch the video of them playing it live, Fish has donned the mask and is singing about killing everybody as the character Grendel. It's just, have you ever seen that?
I haven't seen the live video, but I've seen.
You need to. You need to. It is great. I love it so much.
I'll find it.
Almost every part of this song feels like it belongs. Fish's lyrics are great. This is one of the songs where his vocals don't even really bother me at all. I've said before that Fish is not the best singer and that they really got better in the vocals department with Steve Hogarth. And which is another thing that is a shame when it comes to this song because, they certainly didn't play this at all when Steve was in the band, with Steve in the band. I was going to say when he was in the band, but he's never left the band since he joined.
Yep.
So, yeah, Grendel, one of the best Marillion songs. If you haven't heard it, you absolutely need to.
So, my number 8, I am going to echo the sentiment of my father, and it is going to be the Flower Kings Numbers, another 25-minute monolith. It's pretty good. It's I would say the second best Flower Kings epic. It's got a lot of depth. It's emotional. It's really well structured. This album is also very foxtrot, but it's the opposite. It starts off with the epic instead of closes with it. And so it kind of works very well. It's got a lot of the Genesis moments, a lot of Yes, and there's a little bit more blues on here, a little more psychedelia, but it's a little bit more it's just very well structured. It's nicely put together and it flows very nicely. And it's the first thing that you hear on that album, so it just really works very well. So there you go. My number 8 is Numbers by the Flower Kings. Dad, your number 7.
My number 7 is Emerson, Lake and Palmer's Carnival 9.
Nice.
From Brain Salad Surgery. A lot of ELP fans would say that this was sort of the epitome of their career, and it is really the sort of peak of what many people would consider, the best of ELP. And the theme is still relevant today, where we live in an age of computer technology and AI swamping our lives, and so the theme is still relevant.
Yeah.
But the theme, the lyrics of the "Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends," that's become sort of integral to the ELP legacy, right? That's kind of what they're remembered for, and that's, I guess, part 2 of this.
It's the line that lived the longest from them, I think.
Yeah, it's the bit that lived the longest. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, again, Emerson, Lake and Palmer is one of the great prog bands of all time, and so I don't know. I think they need to be here for sure. And Carnival 9 is my number 7.
All right. Phil, you're number 7.
Well, my number 7, I've got Shine On You Crazy Diamond.
Damn.
Pink Floyd. Wish You Were Here is one of the best prog albums of all time, period. And this album's, I guess, centerpiece is this epic. Obviously, it's split into 2 songs on the album, bookending it with the first half, and then the second half is at the very end. And the whole thing is just fucking great. Atmospheric, spacey. A lot of moments where you can just let yourself sit back and just sink into the soundscape. Very light on lyrics, but doesn't need to have the lyrics throughout. The instrumental parts more than make up for it. Obviously, David Gilmour's guitar work is fantastic through and through. Rick Wright's keyboards, the little saxophone that comes in at the end of the first part. It's an amazing 26-minute experience.
Yep.
Beginning to end, it's a masterpiece. Obviously, it takes a certain level of patience to be able to get through the whole thing, but hey, can you really be a prog fan and not have patience?
Yeah, that's mostly what it is about being a prog fan. You're not going to run into many bands in prog that don't have at least one epic. So, that's one of the main things about being prog, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
All right. My number 7 is, I'm going to echo a few sentiments that you had, Phil, on the previous pick. 2112, which is a fantastic, just so well pieced together 7-piece epic. You have the very spacey overture. You have the super rockin' Temple of Syrinx. You have the very nice and warm Discovery. You have Presentation, which is awesome. Oracle the Dream, amazing. And of course, just this entire thing is so great. Is that Soliloquy? I think so. It's just a very, about 21 minutes long? It's a fairly good length epic. It flows well. It's got some of their best playing on it. It's just it's a classic Rush epic. This is probably their most, I wanted to put in Hemispheres, the Cygnus X1 Part 2 Hemispheres, but I think 2112 is just a smidge bit stronger. We're going to move on to number 6. Dad?
So my number 6 is by the band Echoland.
Ah.
And it is the song Letters from As the World.
Ooh, yeah.
Which has got a little bit of a mix between a Gentle Giant and a Yes kind of feel.
Yep.
But sort of a classic Echoland album.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I just found it particularly compelling. Don't even really know what they're talking about, although it seems to be a lot about, the whole album seems to be about childhood trauma, but I could be wrong about that. I'll have to read the lyrics a little bit better. But it is classic stuff. It's fantastic.
It is.
So number 6 is Letters by Echoland.
Phil, you're number 6.
All right. Well, if you saw our Yes Albums ranked video, this should come as no surprise to videos. this will come as no surprise to you that this would end up being on my list somewhere. My number 6 is The Gates of Delirium.
Ah,
Obviously, I said a lot about this on that video, but I love Gates of Delirium from beginning to end. Soon is one of the most beautiful moments in their entire career. Steve Howe's wailing pedal steel guitar on that whole thing is sublime. And the whole thing is just an adventure from beginning to end. And I also mentioned the part that people call the battle, just an absolute frantic instrumental section that sounds like a instrumental depiction of a war, of a battle. I can't say enough good things about this whole album, about that whole album, but this song in particular, Gates of Delirium, is an undisputed masterpiece. Love everything about it. So that's my number 6.
all right. My number 6 is now we're getting into a couple of really classics. I love it, and I think that this is one of the greatest songs they ever recorded. It's the first song, it's the first epic of many off of this one. The Revealing Science of God, off of Tales from Topographic Oceans. I think that is so good. I love every moment of The Revealing Science of God. It is basically just Close to the Edge too. It's really well put together. It's a little bit less busy because Alan White's the drummer instead of Bill Bruford. But it's still so much in the undertones, the songwriting and styles. It sounds so much like Close to the Edge. It's just a little bit more
Refined?
No, kind of refined, because Close to the Edge I would already say is so refined. It's so just concise, it's well put together. But this is just it's a slightly slower brother, you know what I mean? It's like it's slower, it's a little bit more melodic, and it's not trying to be more Close to the Edge is far more bombastic than this, I would say.
Yeah.
But it's still got the same energy. It's still got the same songwriting style. It's just not as bombastic. It's a little more pretty and uplifting in a way, right? Very warm, atmospheric, great, wonderful harmonies, wonderful vocals, great. Everything about that is so wonderful. I love Steve Howe's guitar playing on that. One of the first times I'll ever compliment Steve Howe's electric guitar playing. I think I like his acoustic guitar playing a little bit more, but still, I think he does a fantastic job here. Same with Close to the Edge, though. And Rick Wakeman's parts on there are just so outstanding. So pretty. Everything about that is very beautiful. That's my...
Now, before we move on, I do have to ask, do you prefer the original vinyl cut that goes straight into the vocals and into that Gregorian chant, or do you like it with the restored intro that they showed on the CD?
And that's one of the things that I'll give a little bit of flack for the Steven Wilson remix. It takes out that intro. It just cuts right to the vocals.
There is a version of that that's still remixed that does have that, though. And I actually did switch them. I actually did switch them around when I ripped them on iTunes.
I think it needs the Close to the Edge similar intro where it builds into a little bit more of into that. I think it works a little bit better with the 30-minute intro, the 30-second minute intro there. But that's just me.
30-minute intro.
Yeah, 30-minute intro, yes. But yeah, that's basically it. That's my number 6. Dad, you're number 5.
So we're into the top 5, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So at number 5, I'm going to go with Garden of Dreams by the Flower Kings from Flower Power. This song is a little bit of a crazy song. It just kind of goes from this to that to the other thing. It's got little bits of blues in it. It's got ambient kind of synth music. It's got a little bit of jazz fusion in it. It's got everything, and it really is like really a very serious modern classic epic that hard for anybody to beat, I would think. But so that's for me, Flower King's Garden of Dreams.
Phil, you're number 5.
All right. My number 5, we're going to 1983 and an album called Tales from the Lush Attic.
Ooh.
And I know that when I'm saying that, the obvious answer would be The Last Human Gateway. However, I'm not going with the obvious answer because my number 5 is The Enemy Smacks.
I see.
I honestly like this one a little bit better than The Last Human Gateway. Just a little bit, not by much, because The Last Human Gateway is great. However, The Enemy Smacks, the best way I could put it is like, it sounds like a mental breakdown in the best way. Like, they wanted to capture what it felt like to have a mental breakdown in a song. All the frantic parts at the beginning, and then the calm parts after the calm part with the second time the vocals come in with that like mellotron flute sound before it goes right into that absolutely crazy moment. Watch it live. It sounds like it looks and sounds like a drug-fueled freak out, for lack of a better word. Obviously, it's even more so when you see Peter Nichols wrapping that string around his arm like a tourniquet.
Yeah.
On the live performances. And honestly, live is almost the best way to listen to it, unless you have, like I said in the IQ video, the 2013 remix of the album.
Yeah.
I like the faster tempo of the studio version, and it gives it more energy. But obviously, with the original mix, it sounds awful. But the 2013 remix fixes so much of it. It makes so much of it sound excellent that if you can find it, which it's not hard to find, you can buy it from the website or you can listen to it on Bandcamp. The only problem is you can't find it on streaming, which I hate. But everything about this song is just absolutely amazing. So my number 5 is The Enemy Smacks.
Very nice. My number 5, it probably is my favorite album of all time. It's probably my favorite song of all time. But I'm not going to put it as my number 1 because I don't think it deserves it. I do actually think there are better epics, weirdly enough, even though I do think that this is my favorite song and my favorite album. But Dogs by Pink Floyd off the classic Animals. 17 minutes and change. What more do you need from this other than it's I would say, Richard Wright and David Gilmour's strongest musicianship on any Pink Floyd record ever. I would put that up to almost any. I would also say it's got an atmosphere unlike any other Pink Floyd record they ever did. It's probably, in my mind, musically, the darkest Pink Floyd epic and album. I think it's got a lot of atmosphere. 17 minutes. Not a single wasted second on here. So, number 4, Dad.
My number 4 is, I'm going to go with Rush and Cygnus X1 Book 2, Hemispheres.
Nice.
I don't know what it is about this, but it holds its own. It's to this day, it's just absolutely compelling and riveting, and it's fantastic. So I don't know. Sometimes I don't really know. It's hard to express why you like something so much.
Yeah.
I can't break it down into a, like I can't put it into a recipe or an exact list and diagnose it.
Mm.
I just think it's absolutely fantastic. So, right, number 4, right?
Yep.
So with number 4, I'll go with Hemispheres by Rush.
Phil, you're number 4.
Well, my number 4 is one that you mentioned previously. We're going back to the amazingness that is Yes, and I'm of course talking about the revealing science of God.
Wow.
Yes. Literally.
Yes. Yeah. Literally, yes.
Obviously, this is the starting epic of the Tales from Topographic Oceans album. And it is probably the most perfect song on that album. The vocals, fantastic. The way that John and Chris's voices blend on the song
Yep.
is beautiful.
Unbelievable.
Everything about it, from the gentle beginning with the Gregorian chant, like I mentioned earlier, all the way to the absolute craziness that is that keyboard solo toward the end, which is the closest the song comes to the intro of Close to the Edge. And not a second is wasted. This whole thing is absolutely gorgeous. And I think my favorite part of this song is actually how it ends, where they reprise the Gregorian chant style, except with added vocal harmonies. And it's such a beautiful way to end an amazing song. Like, every time I listen to this song, I'm always waiting for it to reach that ending.
Yes.
And it just beautifully caps the entire journey. So, number 4 is Revealing Science of God. Close to the Edge did not make my list. Eat me.
I will say, I think that, and this might be this might be an unpopular opinion, but you guys can agree with me if you want. I think that Revealing Science is probably one of the greatest songs they ever wrote. It genuinely
Absolutely.
is. It just is.
Absolutely.
My number 4. All right. Let's talk about a giant. This giant had a drummer kind of like Bill Bruford, a bassist singer kind of like Bill Bruford. I mean, Bill Bruford. Kind of like John Wetton. And had a keyboard player who could basically do anything. This lineup made one of my favorite songs in history. It's Tarkus. This is 20 minutes of perfection. I don't think that there's a better Keith Emerson composition, and I don't think that there's a better ELP composition. I think you could probably go... I would absolutely argue that Tarkus is probably the best thing they ever wrote. It's concise. It's everything that ELP ever did. And if there's one thing that is absolutely the most iconic about Tarkus, more than any other ELP song, it's that goddamn percussion on that Hammond organ. There is no other Hammond organ sound that sounds like that. I can't... it's so iconic. Its tone. It's got so much percussion in it. It's perfect. Tarkus, ELP. Perfect masterpiece. Number 3, Dad.
My number 3, I'm sure, will be a bit of a disappointment to anyone who thinks that, it's just by the book and what, what everybody else thinks. But my number 3 is Yes is Close to the Edge. Yes, I do think it's perfect, everything about it, but, there can only be one number 1 that I pick. And so,
Yeah.
it just, listening to these things, Zoltan, you and I, we listen to all these tracks over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And some of it is some of it is just what did we pick on the day we listened to it, right?
Yep.
It's how you feel about it on the day that you decide to make your list.
Kind of.
And if it grabs you on that day, it really doesn't matter that it grabbed you back in 78 or 1979 or 1982 or whatever. But right now, I thought that I still think it's absolutely fantastic, but I put it at number 3.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's absolutely perfect, but still, number 3.
Phil, you're number 3.
All right. My number 3, I talked about somebody's attempt at recreating Supper's Ready earlier on in my list. And so it's only fitting that the real Supper's Ready makes an appearance.
Yeah.
And it does at the number 3 spot. This song is fucking perfect.
Yep.
Everything about it. Peter Gabriel's voice, Tony Banks, all of the keyboards he does, all of his organ playing, the Apocalypse in 9/8 organ solo is absolutely iconic. Everybody who even claims to be a Genesis fan that doesn't just stick to the pop stuff, which if you do, I question how much of a Genesis fan you really are, honestly. That is just iconic completely. The crazy thing is, like, every time I hear that part, I'm always either trying to focus on the organ solo or the groove for the drums and the guitar and the bass. And, like, doing either one causes the other to not sound right, but at the same time, it still completely works. And I don't know how many other bands have done that well. And of course, Willow Farm. That's all I need to say. Willow Farm.
Apocalypse in 9/8.
Yeah, that too. But
As
I already
sure as
talked
eggs
about
is
it.
eggs. The entire song. How about that?
The entire song.
Yeah,
The
literally.
entire fucking song.
Exactly.
Every single moment.
Yep.
It is pretty much the quintessential rock epic.
Yep.
But it's not number 1. There are 2 more.
Yeah. All right. I will echo sentiments of one of my hosts here, and it'll be Dad, Close to the Edge. 19 minutes. Actually, 18:50. But, I mean, how close? Come on. The solid time of change, absolutely wonderful. Total mass retain. I get up, I get down, and seasons of man. I mean, I cannot say a single bad thing about Close to the Edge. The opening is heaven. It goes directly into chaos with Bill Bruford and Steve Howe and a little bit of Chris Squire's slick bass line under there. Then you go into chaos with Rick Wakeman adding in some keyboard lines in there, and Steve Howe goes crazy. And then you finally have the beautiful harmonies of John Anderson and co. And finally, just everything. It just works. I get up, I get down. The church organs. Every single second on that. Brilliant. You're number 2.
Zoe, this was really hard for me. As you know, I struggled. I went back and forth,
Mhm.
and my number one and my number two are interchangeable almost.
Yep.
But I actually landed, and I don't know why really. It's just listening today. I listened to bits and pieces of each one. I decided that number two was going to be Supper's Ready by Genesis. I do think it's perfect, but it just today, my mood was that it was number two.
Mm.
So that's the way it goes. I get it, it's perfect, and I love Genesis. They're my favorite band, but today it was number two.
All right.
So also Supper's Ready by Genesis, number two.
Phil, you're number two.
All right. My number two, we're going back to IQ. And my number two is the ever loved, the absolute masterpiece, The Narrow Margin. The song that wraps up Supper's Ready. What's wrong with me? The song that wraps up Subterranea. Maybe
Yep.
that happened, with the best ending possible. It is absolutely fantastic. That percussion loop that starts it off going into the piano, that prog section
Mm-hmm.
toward the second half of the album, or the second half of the song, rather, that leads us into that amazing climax. The best way to experience this is to watch the live version from the Subterranea, the concert, with all the visuals that adds. When the talking about the kerosene igniting, all the screens and stuff start showing fire. It is an experience all on its own. And the way it ends with the acoustic guitar and the reprise of the second part, all the way to the final moments of the song where that metal door sound happens, that signals the prison door closing again, just like how it opened and the end of the second track, Provider. Absolutely great. I love everything, and I mean everything, about this song. The Narrow Margin. Best IQ song of all time.
My number two is going to be a very stereotypical pick. And everybody's already said it. I'm going to be echoing both of your sentiments, your third and Dad's second. Supper's Ready. Exactly what moment is bad about Supper's Ready?
None.
Exactly. I have seen, Dad, you've seen that song live by the Musical Box. I've seen that song live numerous times by the Musical Box as well. And
I've seen it live by Steve Hackett.
Exactly. There you go.
Twice.
I've seen it live by Genesis.
That's the ultimate, isn't it? That's the ultimate. He's got us beat. He's got us. He wins. You win. All right. We surrender. Jesus. Every last second of it. It's really well put together. The atmosphere, all the parts. It's well constructed. It's well arranged. What more is there to say? It's probably it. It's the great Genesis epic. It's the only one, unfortunately. But
Why didn't you put it at number one?
I guess you'll see. Dad, you're number one.
My number one is Emerson, Lake and Palmer's Tarkus.
There you go. Yep. Okay.
It's hard to say why. It's just I listened to both of them today, and I don't know. I just got drawn in more by Tarkus. Again, it's both of them are perfect. Any one day, it could be either one, but or even close to the edge because it's perfect too.
Yeah.
I just, maybe it's because today I was in kind of a keyboard mood, and Keith Emerson's Hammond playing is so stellar that I just get sucked in.
Yeah.
My old man brain is just like, wow, that's freaking great.
Yeah.
So I don't know. But just it's compelling
Yeah.
and the playing is through the roof. So yeah, I mean today's only maybe not be tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow will be supper's ready, but today it was Tarkus.
All right. Phil, you're number 1.
All right. My number 1. What I consider to be the best prog epic that I've listened to, at least. Thick as a Brick.
Oh, wow. All right.
Good. That's great. It's a good pick.
Absolutely. Like, obviously, so many of these epics that we all listed are perfect from beginning to end, but how many can be perfect from beginning to end and also be about 40 minutes? How can you can't argue with that. Thick as a Brick. A whole album as one song,
Mm-hmm.
split into 2 because of the format.
Yeah.
Everything about each part is absolutely killer. I've always loved Ian Anderson's voice. He is one of my favorite prog singers. He is an amazing flautist.
Mm-hmm.
We all know that. Obviously, Martin Barr, the other guys in the group, and like I unfortunately have not bothered to memorize their names because, like, Jethro Tull changes members almost as much as Yes does.
Probably more, actually.
Like, probably more, but unlike Yes, they've actually released more than 2 albums with the same lineup consecutively. But like, I can't think of a single bad section or even good section. Every moment of this is amazing,
Yeah.
just from beginning to end. Like, I could
Yeah.
go into detail, but there's so much here.
True.
There's
And
so much here that
how many prog songs could describe Zoltan so perfectly?
What?
oh,
Wow. Wow.
I
Jeez.
I uh, I would have I would have gotten the emotional damage meme put up with that.
Emotional
Damage.
Jeez. Emotional
Well, when you put it that way, there's no other place it could be. It has to be number 1.
Oh, God.
As
Jeez. Well, there you go. Oh, Jesus. All right. There you go. You're number 1. All
That's
right.
a good. I like that. It's a good pick.
All right. All right. Time to rattle some brains. My number 1 is also going to be a monolith. This is gigantic. This song is huge. Huge. Absolutely gigantic. It has been mentioned by one of us already. And this is probably my favorite epic. I am so excited to eventually do this song as a cover. It is The Garden of Dreams by the Flower Kings. 1 hour, it's 59 minutes and 57 seconds. It's 3 seconds shy of an hour. It's got everything you could possibly want. The mellotrons, the classic production, the Phil Collins-like drumming, the harmonies of Yes, the stylistic vocal changes of Genesis, musical styles of Yes, Genesis, King Crimson, among jazz fusion, classical music, and a little bit of blues, a little bit of soft rock in there, and a lot of just straight atmosphere. I don't think I can find many songs that go on for an hour that you just can't be like, damn, I wish I was skipping this part. And I'm just like, there's nothing there that I'll skip. I love it. It's in my mind the best one. 1 hour and change. That is it. My top 10. We're going to move on to songs that didn't make the list. And I think that a great idea would just be to throw it to Phil.
All right.
What's a few that
Should I?
what's one that you thought would be good?
Well, I have a whole honorable mentions thing. It's only 4 songs, but I know some of you would probably have as many as 10.
I do have 10.
But obviously, the first one to start off with is Harvest of Souls.
That's a fantastic one.
Honestly, if you asked me why Grendel made the list and Harvest of Souls didn't, it's that there were already 2 IQ epics on the list.
Yeah.
And honestly, if it wasn't for that, I could have put Harvest of Souls at number 6, right below the Enemy Smacks.
Probably. I can see that.
And the only reason why it wasn't any higher on the list is basically because I felt like it relied a little bit too much on Supper's Ready.
Yeah.
But that, obviously, for a listening experience, that doesn't bother me in the slightest because every moment of that is completely classic. And, again, why did this song not make it and Grendel did? Because there were already 2 IQ songs on my list.
That's another great one. That's another great reason. An epic that I could have mentioned, and I think that this one's great, and I would like to get your guys' thoughts on this. Maybe I'm just crazy. I didn't put this in my top 10. Dad did. Carnival 9. I love this thing. I think it's great. 29 minutes. I do think that the first impression part 1 and 2 are fantastic. And I think the second impression is fantastic. The main reason why I didn't put it in here is because I don't find anything from the third impression all that memorable. It doesn't strike me all that much. Nothing about it keeps me listening. Like, it's a little bit of a mess, but it's really good. It's a cool ending too. I think it's strong still. I think I put this in my honorable mentions for a reason. It's good. I just think that it's not something that I would proudly say is like every part is fantastic. I don't know what you guys think, but
Well, I also had Carnival 9 in my honorable mentions. Pretty much for the same reasons that you did. I'm honestly surprised that looking at the singles that ELP had put out, the singles, quote unquote, I'm surprised that part 2 of the first impression wasn't released as a single.
Yeah, me neither.
It could have been.
It could have been.
Like, I could see that being played on at least FM radio at the time.
Yeah, of course. Me too.
Although when I was in my mid-20s and working in a freezer factory, and we were listening to classic rock radio every day, all day, because that's what you do when you work in a factory.
Yeah.
That Welcome Back, My Friends thing was on all the time.
Oh, well, there you go. That was part 2.
Really?
Impression. The
Yeah.
first impression part
That was
2.
part 2, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
One of your
As was Bungle in the Jungle, that was played all the time. And Living in the Past, that was always played. As was Aqualung. I mean, Aqualung was played all the time. Could hear it over and over.
That's another one that I'm not. That's another one that I'm surprised there was never a single Aqualung. It's like one of their best known songs.
Yeah, it was played all the. I heard it every day, and I was working with a guy who loved Van Halen. So every time Jethro Tull would come on, I'd say ha ha ha, because he always treated me like I was an old man. Yeah. But of course, at the time, I was like 26. I was like, I'm not an old man. Jethro. Everybody loves Jethro Tull, don't you understand? Yeah. I was trying to coach this 21-year-old that Jethro Tull is really, but there's a few things I couldn't manage to get in, which I find a little bit concerning. For one, for sure, is Triumvirates, Illusions on a Double Dimple. Fantastic one. And another one is Vandegraff's A Plague of Lighthouse Keepers. I know, Zoltan, you said you didn't like it. You think it meanders all over the place. But in some ways, that's the point of 1972's prog rock.
I
It's
guess,
that
but
people
then
just said,
again,
there's going to meander everywhere.
I guess, but Close to the Edge and Supper's Ready don't do that.
Yeah. Another one was Alan Parsons, The Fall of the House of Usher.
Oh, yeah, that's a great one. I wish I had mentioned that one too. Yeah, that's a good one. I wish I put that on the list.
And then the other Jethro Tull ones that didn't make it, but could have made it, A Passion Play.
Yep.
And Backstreet Muse from
Baker Street Muse?
Minstrel in the Gallery. Baker Street Muse, yes.
Yeah, that's
Sorry,
good too.
Liz.
Minstrel
Baker
in the
Street Muse.
Gallery. Pretty good
And
stuff.
then, yes, I didn't get in The Revealing Signs of God or Awaken
Oof.
or Endless Dream.
Yeah, those are good ones
From
too.
Tuck.
Oh, yes.
And then I couldn't get in The Flower King, Stardust We Are. So those are my honorable mentions.
Damn.
I even had in my notes here IQs Without Walls.
Yeah, that one.
That's a really good one.
Can't believe I forgot that one. Damn.
I also
Without
had
Walls.
Stephen Wilson's Raider 2.
Damn. Nah. Yeah.
From Zoe, help me out. What's the name of the album?
Grace for Drowning.
Grace for Drowning.
Unbelievable song. I'll get to that
That's
one
a
in a
really,
minute.
really, really good one.
Yeah.
Well, if we'd have done the top 20, I could have done all this.
Yeah, true. Phil, you
That would have
mentioned
made this list even harder.
Yeah. I know. You mentioned Shine On You Crazy Diamond, and this one is an album that is just Wish You Were Here clone. This is a Wish You Were Here mirror album entirely. I didn't add it into the list because of that, and it's also not really rock in some of it, but it's very Pink Floyd. It's very Wish You Were Here, and it's formatted as such as well. But the Sky Moves Sideways Phase 1 is out of this world. This is unbelievable space rock. If you want to hear the closest thing to Pink Floyd in the 90s, this is it. This is absolutely it. Phil, if you really like Shine On You Crazy Diamond, tell me what you think about the Sky Moves Sideways Phase 1. That is so sick. It's really cool. I think you'd like that.
I'll need to listen to that. I'll need to listen to that.
It's really cool. It's a lot. It's take everything you like about just the more techno stuff that was going on in the 90s, a little bit more like sequenced computers and drum beats and all those kinds of things, and you just put a lot of Pink Floyd atmospheres and weird keyboards on there. That's what it is. It's basically just 90s Pink Floyd in a nutshell. It's very good. Speaking of Pink Floyd, another epic that I wish I could have mentioned but didn't. Echoes off of Metal. I don't know just how iconic that one is in terms of like Pink Floyd epics, but that's probably their most iconic one, right? Echoes is just very iconic. Is there anything else you had there, Phil? You said you had two more, right?
Yeah, I have two more honorable mentions, and both of them are yes.
Oh, let's hear them.
I mean, obviously, the first one is Close to the Edge. If it wasn't going to show up on the list itself, there was no way in hell I could honestly not put it in the honorable mentions.
Yeah.
Basically, just it would have been on the list other than the fact that there were already two Yes songs on there.
Right.
And, you guys are saying that Close to the Edge is perfect. I absolutely agree. There is not a single moment on I would ever even consider taking off. And actually, some parts I think could have been a bit longer, and I would not have complained in the slightest.
Yep.
I just like Gates of Delirium and Revealing Science of God better.
Understood. And what was the other one?
And the other one is Fly From Here.
Wow. All right.
That really such a surprise?
I would have thought it would have been because you had Gates of Delirium and Revealing Science, which is actually surprising. You think that that's the best? Yes, epic, which is interesting. I that's really cool. But I would have thought you would have said Awaken actually.
Awaken is really good. Absolutely. I just think that the the harp section with the organ solo and with the organ flourishes and stuff, I think that goes on a little bit too long for it to really be a little bit of for it to really be a contender.
Thank you.
But it's the whole song is still beautiful.
Yeah.
I just think that it's a little bit overrated.
So why Fly From Here instead?
Well, for one of the longest epics that they've ever done,
True.
obviously split into like 6 pieces, including the overture.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite concise.
Yeah.
There's not really any moments wasted on it.
No.
I do think some of the arrangement changes to the return trip version help, especially with Sad Night at the Airfield. I mentioned that.
Yeah.
Talked about our yes lists. And Benoit David and Trevor Horn both do a great job on vocals
Yeah.
for these songs that make up this suite. Benoit does a better job, but
Yeah.
Trevor does his thing.
Yep.
And obviously it is not at their most technical.
No.
However, the songwriting aspect of it makes up for that
Top notch.
greatly.
Yeah.
Some of the best songwriting Yes has ever done.
Without a doubt. I agree. All right. I have a couple of honorable mentions. I have a couple more. If you guys want to, I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on this. This was in both of your top 10. It wasn't in mine. It'll be Thick as a Brick Part 1. I really do like Thick as a Brick, and I do think that it's really good. I just think that there's a couple of parts after the first 2 memorable sections that just meander a little bit, and then you get the dun 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 dun, and it's just great afterwards again.
That's fun.
There's a few parts in there.
I'm trying to learn that on flute.
It's really fun. It's pretty fun to learn on Hammond. I learned it too. I learned it on Hammond. It's pretty fun. But I think overall, there's just a few parts for me that just don't click with me as much as you guys, obviously, and as much as I actually understand why this is considered such a classic, it doesn't fit for me entirely. Now, Dad, you brought this one up, and Phil, I don't actually know if you've listened to this one, but this one, I'm very surprised, Dad, that you brought this one up, but it's great too. I'm very glad that you did, because I think it's worthy of at least a mention, and you seem to agree. Raider 2 off of Grace for Drowning.
I have not listened to that album from Steven Wilson.
It is that this is Dad, wouldn't you agree? It's got a lot of Crimson in it. It's a lot of King Crimson, but it's very Steven Wilson-y. It's just very Steven Wilson, a lot of King Crimson.
Yeah, I think if you listen to the Raven and stuff, and you wouldn't be surprised by this.
No.
I know it's earlier, but still, it fits in with.
It's also got
Raven.
Jordan Rudess on it, so.
Does it?
Yeah, it does. It's got Jordan Rudess. He does all the piano on this song, so. Another one that I have, I wish I had brought this one up as well. I didn't. You did, Phil, and I'm very happy you did. Fly From Here as well. I think that I was going to put this in my top 10. I really was. I was going to, and then I listened to the Revealing Science of God one more time, and I was just like, nah, I can't. I love Fly From Here so damn much. It's my second favorite Yes album. We did that in the Yes Worst to Best. You guys know how much I love this goddamn thing. I love Fly From Here, and that entire suite is perfect.
Okay, I just remembered one
Oh?
that I could have honestly put into my top 10.
Say.
But, I'm not going to change my list now that it's already over. I'll just add it to the honorable mentions.
Yep.
And Brian mentioned the Alan Parsons Project's Fall of the House of Usher.
Which is beautiful.
And I'm going to go a different route and say The Turn of a Friendly Card.
Wait. Is that long enough?
Is it?
Is it? Is it
Yeah.
long enough?
It's 16 minutes and 38 seconds.
Wow! Okay. All right. Damn. All right. If I had known that, I would have... I would have...
Yeah, I would have put it into.
I would have listened to it and maybe have considered it. Damn.
Yeah,
All right.
and the Duke Suite too. I would have put it in.
We'll get to that in a minute. A couple of other ones that I have point out. Dad, you brought this one up. A Tab in the Ocean by Nectar. Really good. It sounds a lot like a little bit of Floyd, Yes, and Kansas. That's what I get from that. It's really good. It's a classic epic. It's 16 and a half minutes long. It's really good. Really good. Really solid. Next. I think everybody here has heard this one at least once. Because these guys are... This one's a very hard one to... if you've listened to anything heavier in prog, you've probably heard this at least once. Anesthetized by Porcupine Tree.
Yes.
No, Porcupine Tree. But...
God damn it.
The reaction was fantastic. Jesus Christ. But Jesus Christ. But 17 minutes and 40 seconds. I really do like this. I was going to put it in my top 10, but then I was like, it's not better than Raider 2. And I actually prefer Raider 2 over it. I was going to put Raider 2 in my top 10 too, but I decided not to. I have two more, and then we'll get to the last subject. Another, this is the most classic epic they have in their discography. I love this thing. I just have one problem with the third part, and it drones on a little bit too much after the vocal part, just a tinge. Stardust We Are. I love this thing. I think that the 25-minute song is perfect. Aside from just a little bit of too much of continuing a certain part for a little too long. But otherwise, it's really good. And finally, Dad, you put this one in your top 10. And this one, I swear, if I had to listen to it maybe one more time, it probably actually goes in the top 10. I love this thing. This is so good. Letters by Echolen. It's everything you want in terms of a 90s band trying to do a little bit of that heavier, more atonal prog like Gentle Giant was doing, and a little bit of just it's getting to that just weirdness of Gentle Giant, the atonal harmonies that they were doing, right? It's a lot of that. Add in a little bit of grunge, a little bit of Yes, a little bit of Genesis, and a lot of Gentle Giant in there. This is what it is. Letters is basically a Gentle Giant epic if it ever existed. But it never did, so we got Letters instead. And I think that that's a fantastic effort. Now, is there anything else we want to add?
No.
We're going to go into the the short conversation I would like everybody to be involved in. Phil, you actually did mention this one in your official list. Dad and I obviously did not. This was the only one that was like really segmented across the entire album. and we're going to talk about it now. Duke, the Duke Suite. Officially taken apart and mangled across an entire 60-minute album. I do think that the entire song is fantastic. I also think that Duke is just one of the greatest Genesis albums of all time. It's all completely and utterly just split up on the official release. You have Behind the Lines, Duchess, and guide vocal, and then it just stops. Man of Our Time, Misunderstanding, Hethes. Then you get Turn It On again, which is great. But then Alone Tonight, Cul-de-sac, Please Don't Ask, and then it ends with Duke's Travels and Duke's End. I know that they also reconstructed it live and
Yes.
did it live on the Duke tour, which is one of the reasons why I was going to consider it. And it's on my list regardless. I wanted to bring it up. I want to talk about it. I want to talk specifically, Phil, you did put it in your list. I want to talk about more why you did and more why Dad and I didn't. I would have. It's just more of the fact that they officially did not release it as the epic, right? What do you think?
I think it is a shame that they didn't.
Yeah.
However, I have all 6 songs in a playlist,
Yep.
so I can listen to them all at once
Yep.
if I want to.
Yep.
And I do every so often.
Yep.
And listening to it live on that tour, on the As Good as Gold bootleg that I have, is always an absolute treat. I would say it's like most Genesis songs, it's better live than recorded anyway.
Mm.
And it's, despite being stretched out to the entire album and like splintered and with other songs in between, putting them together is still a surprisingly cohesive listen.
Yeah. When you're talking, are you talking about the studio tracks themselves when you play them?
Both,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, they do really, really transition very well when they do it live. I feel like they tried to just find a way to put all of the recorded material that was full and just put it on the album and just make it flow as best they can. And I think the video that you can find, and I believe it's still the As Good as Gold audio, actually.
Yes, it is. It's from that same concert.
Yep, that's what I thought. That makes total sense. It's really good that was recorded and put on a video too. It's really great.
That did help in my decision to put this on the list.
Yeah, they do technically officially have it as a Duke Suite, but not on the album, which is one of the reasons why I couldn't put it on my top 10, which hurts my heart so much because I'll be honest with you. Here it is. Here's the harsh truth, and this is going to hurt a lot of Prog fans, Genesis fans included. I don't care. If this song were officially released as the epic that it was, and it came out as the 28 minutes officially, that would have been my number one.
Yeah,
me too.
It would have been my number one without hesitation. It's got so much emotion. I don't know. I'm really sad that it's not officially listed as an entire epic. You can find the live video and all that. I understand. It's just, you can even piece it together on like playlists. You can piece it together in any way you want. It's just really sad that they never officially released it as an official epic. And because of that, I wasn't able to put it on my list. It sucks. Again, if it were officially put together as one song, it would have been my number one. Without any question, it would have been my number one.
Now, I might use this as a chance to bring up the Lost Suite from Abacab that Dodo and Lurker were originally going to be a part of. That
What?
the other two segments of it were released as B-sides to singles. You didn't know?
No.
Yeah. Dodo Lurker was originally 2 parts of something that was going to be longer. And the other 2 parts were never put out on the album. They were only released as B-sides. And to this day, we don't even know what order they were going to be in. You are looking at me like I have 2 heads. I am telling you the truth.
I bet you are, but what the flying crap? What? No.
Yeah.
B-sides? Which ones? Another no.
No, it wasn't another record. It was, let's see,
Naminanu?
Naminanu was one of them. And
Hold on. Submarine?
Submarine, yes, that was the other.
Damn, really?
Yep.
What? That would have been perfect. That would have been so cool.
That song by itself is already the best song on Abacab.
Yeah, that one and the title track are the best. So how does it work? How does it flow? Okay, so Naminanu, Dodo, Lurker, and then Submarine.
That's what the best guess of the fan base is.
I think that we should listen to it, and we'll get to you. We'll get back to you, Phil, and we'll have to. We'll have to see about that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
We may have to have another conversation about a couple of these. Like, we may have to have another conversation about this one. We'll see. I do think that we'll talk about that for sure. Otherwise, I think we're gonna cap it off there. Are you guys happy with your picks?
Yeah, for the most part.
Yeah.
All right. Let's say goodbye, shall we? Now, thank you all very much for watching. If you enjoyed this, please leave a like, share, and subscribe. If you disagree with our opinions, leave it down in the comments section about telling us how wrong we are. And we will see you guys in the next video. Peace.